My name is Elena Ward. And this is the day my life truly began and ended at the same time. I still remember the sound first. The chaotic hum of people talking, kids crying, the echo of footsteps across the shiny tiles of Crestwood Shopping Mall. I was only 5 years old, but even now, decades later, the memory hits me with a sharpness that makes my chest ache. My parents had taken me there on a Saturday afternoon. I held my mother's hand while my father walked slightly ahead, scrolling through his phone. I didn't know then, but I know now. They weren't there to shop. They were there to leave me. We stopped in the food court. Bright lights, long lines, every table filled. My mother bent down to my level, forced a smile, and said something I'll never forget. "Sweetheart, stay right here. Mommy and Daddy just need to check something." It didn't sound suspicious. Parents say that all the time. But there was something different in her eyes, something cold, something final. And then they walked away. At first, I waited. I swung my little legs, watching people eat fries and sip sodas. Minutes passed. Then more. My happy excitement slowly twisted into confusion, then panic. I stood up, scanning the crowd. They were gone. Not in any store. Not around any corner. Not anywhere. My heart pounded as I ran between tables, bumping into strangers, calling out for them. No one answered. No familiar faces. Just the massive mall swallowing me whole. That's when I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. A man knelt in front of me. Strong jaw, warm eyes. A calmness I desperately needed. "Hey," he said softly. "Are you lost?" I didn't know his name then. But soon, he would become the only family I had left. His name was Daniel Cross. While security made announcements and searched the mall, I held on to his coat, trembling. Hours passed. Closing time approached. No one came for me. No worried parents rushing in. No frantic tears. Nothing, just silence. And the truth that even at 5 years old, I somehow already understood. They weren't coming back. Daniel refused to leave my side. When child services arrived, he followed us. He stayed through the interviews, the paperwork, the questions. He visited every week. And when they asked if he wanted to apply for guardianship, he said yes without hesitation. That's how the stranger from the mall became the man who raised me, loved me, protected me, and eventually left me his entire life savings. A savings worth millions. And that's also when the past, the people who threw me away like a forgotten shopping bag, suddenly crawled back into my life. Not for love. For money. The knock on my office door felt heavier than usual. My heart skipped. It had been 30 years since the mall incident, and I thought I'd buried that little girl deep inside me. But here they were. Kevin and Karen Ward. My parents. Walking into the same city I had built a life in, like nothing had happened. Their eyes scanned the room, full of false warmth. Smiles stretched too wide. Hands extended for a hug. I didn't move. I didn't acknowledge them. Instead, I gestured toward the chair across my desk. "Sit," I said, my voice cold, calm, precise. They obeyed like obedient actors. Their lawyer hovered behind, smiling too confidently, already imagining the $5 million inheritance they thought they could claim from me. I leaned back in my chair, letting silence do the work. They had perfected silence for years. The way it masked their greed, their selfishness, their lies. I had learned to weaponize it. "You remember the Crestwood Mall?" I asked, letting my words hang like a guillotine. Their faces didn't change. They weren't expecting that. They thought the past was buried, erased. "Oh, Elena," Karen's voice faltered. Kevin's jaw tightened. "Yes. The mall," I continued. "The food court. The day you left me. Alone. Surrounded by strangers. And then vanished." A small, flickering smirk appeared on Kevin's lips. "That was a misunderstanding. You were safe." I didn't flinch. "Safe?" I echoed. Safe is someone checking under every table, scanning every corner, and waiting for their child. Not walking away. "You left me. Like luggage. Like a shopping bag you didn't want to carry." The room went silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Their lawyer swallowed hard. "I have a question for you," I said, leaning forward. "If a parent abandoned their child to profit from their absence, would you forgive them, or destroy them?" Kevin's face twitched. Karen's hands clenched into fists. They hadn't expected truth spoken like a weapon. Then I picked up a file from my desk. Old receipts. Documents. Casino statements from the week they abandoned me. Every gambling loss. Every check they wrote, from the money meant for me. You didn't look for me, I said softly. You didn't care. You celebrated. You gambled. You profited. Karen gasped. Kevin's face turned pale. I smiled just slightly, a predator aware of the trap closing. And now, 3 decades later, you want to cash in again. Not for love. Not for guilt. For greed. But this time. I tapped the table. This time it's different. I'm not the 5-year-old girl in the mall anymore. I'm the woman who can make you pay. I could see it in their eyes. Panic. Realization. The mask was slipping. And the suspense? They had no idea what was coming next. The night was quiet in my apartment, but my mind was loud. I had spent 3 days combing through old files, receipts, and mall records. The Ward family's greed had left footprints, and I intended to follow them all. A knock on the door startled me. I froze. No one should have known I was here. Slowly I opened it. It was Sarah, my forensic accountant and partner in uncovering the past. Elena, she whispered, holding a folder. I found it. The proof we need. I grabbed it, my hands trembling slightly, not from fear but anticipation. Inside were faded mall security logs, receipts from the day they abandoned me, and most damning of all, a series of signed documents confirming that the Wards had legally written me off in their lives, and in financial terms. You're serious? I asked, scanning the files. Sarah nodded. They claimed you disappeared, that you were a missing child. And they collected settlement money from the mall's insurance. $450,000. And here's the kicker. They signed a sworn affidavit saying you were gone. The room went silent. Not just the quiet of the apartment, but the kind of silence that made your bones hum. That was the same suffocating silence I had felt in Crestwood Mall decades ago. But now, it was their silence I controlled. This is their lie, their greed, all documented. I said, voice low, deliberate. They didn't just abandon me. They profited from it. And now they want the next paycheck, me. Sarah looked at me. You have the power. You're a judge now. This isn't the little girl in the mall anymore. You can use this evidence to dismantle them completely. I nodded. Exactly. I pulled up the photos I had taken of the old receipts and statements. Kevin and Karen had been gambling the very day I was left behind. Food court receipts, arcade tickets, soda cans. They had celebrated my absence, not mourned it. I smiled coldly. They thought they could walk back into my life, acting like nothing happened. Acting like victims. But victims don't profit from their own crimes. The following day in court was tense. Kevin and Karen tried their practice smiles. They thought their charm could sway the room. I let them speak. I let them weave their story of suffering. I listened quietly, like a hawk circling prey. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. I stood, holding the folder. The air shifted, heavy and sharp. Every eye in the courtroom fixed on me. I laid out the evidence. Security logs, receipts, affidavits. You claimed I vanished, I said, voice steady. You celebrated while I counted every soda can, every arcade token, every moment alone in a crowded mall. And now, 3 decades later, you want to cash in again. Not for love, for greed. The judge raised an eyebrow. The room buzzed with tension. Kevin's hands shook. Karen's face drained of color. I leaned in slightly. And the settlement. $450,000. You signed a paper that declared me dead. You sold your own child. That day in Crestwood Mall, I died to you. And now, I paused. Silence stretched, thick and electric. Now, it's your turn to feel the consequences. Their smiles were gone. The air smelled like fear. I had flipped the script. I was no longer the abandoned child. I was the architect of their reckoning. I didn't know if the mall's air conditioning was getting colder, or if it was just the dread crawling slowly up my spine. I stood outside Chasewood Mall's lost and found office, staring at the tiny glass window. Inside, the security guard from earlier was arguing with someone on the phone. Angry whispers, brows tense, eyes shifting around like he was being watched. And he kept glancing at me. I pretended not to notice. But the moment his call ended, he stepped outside and shut the door behind him. "Evan right?" he asked. "Yeah." "You need to be careful," he said quietly, his voice suddenly softer, almost afraid. "People don't leave kids behind by accident. Not like this." His tone made my stomach twist. "What do you mean?" I asked. He sighed. "You're not the first." Those 4 words hit like a punch. The first what? The first abandoned kid? The first target? The first experiment? Before I could ask, something crashed inside the office. Not a small sound, a full-on slam, like furniture being knocked over. The guard froze. Then he whispered, "Stay here," and slowly pushed the door open. The room was dark. Lights flickered. And then, a figure ran across the back wall. Not a shadow. Not a trick of the light. A person. Wearing the same black jacket I had seen earlier at the mall entrance. "HEY," the guard yelled. But the figure slipped through the emergency exit at the back like they knew every corner of this place. The guard chased after them. For a second, I stayed put. But silence settled too quickly. Unnaturally quickly. I stepped inside the room. The smell of dust and cold metal hit me instantly. Papers were scattered across the floor. Visitor logs, IDs, mall reports. And on the desk, something was waiting for me. An envelope. With my new name on it. To Evan. My heart thudded. Hands shaking, I opened it. Inside were only 2 sentences. "You weren't forgotten. You were chosen." My legs weakened. My breath stopped. Chosen, for what? Before I could think, footsteps erupted in the hallway, fast, heavy, coming straight toward the office. I spun around. The guard was nowhere. The emergency exit was dark. And the footsteps were getting louder. I didn't wait. I grabbed the envelope and ran out of the office, sprinting into the mall hallway. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Whoever was coming, they were close, too close. As I turned a corner, I saw something that made my blood go cold. The man in the black jacket, standing at the top of the escalator, smiling like he already knew where I'd be. And then he began walking down. Step by step. Slow, controlled, confident. Like he wasn't chasing me. Like he was collecting me. Something was very, very wrong. I could hear the echoes of my own footsteps bouncing off the mall walls. The envelope burned in my hand, its weight heavier than I expected. Every instinct screamed run, but the hallway twisted in ways that seemed designed to trap me. The man in black was descending the escalator like a shadow of inevitability. Calm. Patient. Dangerous. And I realized, he wasn't just after me. He was here to remind me of the past, of every time I had been abandoned, every choice that had been stolen from me. I ducked into a small service corridor, heart hammering. The envelope fell open, and inside were old photographs. Images of me as a child in the mall. Alone. Waiting. Scared. Kevin and Karen, my so-called parents, in the background, laughing unconcerned. Memories crashed over me like a tidal wave. The mall, the waiting benches, the neon signs flashing sale. All a theater for my abandonment. But now, I wasn't that scared 5-year-old anymore. I slammed the service door behind me, catching my breath. My hands went to my phone. I needed evidence. I needed help. And then I remembered Sarah, the forensic accountant I had called years ago. If there was a trail, she could find it. She wouldn't just dig into numbers. She would dig into every single lie Kevin and Karen had built their lives upon. I snapped a photo of the envelope, the pictures, everything. Send. A noise. Footsteps. Behind me. Quick. Calculated. I turned. He was there. The man in black. "Evan," he said softly. "No malice. Just recognition. You've grown up strong. Smart. But strong isn't enough. You need to understand why this happened." I froze. "Why?" I whispered. He lifted a folder. Inside were receipts, casino tickets, even letters. The truth spilled out. Kevin and Karen had abandoned me for money. Not just that, they had tried to cover it up, manipulate the system, pretend I was dead. The mall, the waiting, it was never about losing me. It was a calculated decision. I swallowed, anger and sorrow coiling tight in my chest. They thought they could erase me. "They did more than that," he said. They underestimated you. And that was the final piece. I realized I had been building my life around their lies, their greed. But now, I had the power, evidence, truth, and control. I wasn't running anymore. I was ready. The mall lights flickered. Security cameras had captured everything. Him entering, me discovering, the evidence in the envelope. Sarah's team would ensure every lie they told was exposed. I walked out of the corridor into the open space of the mall. He stayed back, nodding once before vanishing into the shadows, leaving me with the certainty that I wasn't alone. Kevin and Karen had made a fatal mistake, thinking the child they abandoned would remain silent. Now the truth would haunt them. And this time, justice would come not as silence, but as a reckoning they couldn't escape. I stood in the center of the mall, holding the envelope, letting the memories wash over me. The fear, the betrayal, the abandonment, all of it had shaped me, but it would not define me. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, I am not your property. I am not your pawn. I am Evan Hart, and I decide my own life. And as I walked away, the mall felt different. Alive. Silent but full of possibility. As I walked away from the mall, holding the envelope and feeling the weight of justice in my hands, I realized this story isn't just mine. There are countless others waiting to be heard, waiting for their silence to turn into power. If you want to hear more stories like mine, thrilling, suspenseful, and full of twists, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, the next story is going to be even more shocking. Don't miss it.